welcome to the very first episode of the All Things Books show. This week I've got a really exciting interview with my narrator Alex Lee, which I'll come on to in a minute. So this is a little bit of what I've got in store for you.
It goes from there to be turned into an MP3. It's called Bouncing Out, and that can take a day for a book, at least a day to bounce out.
I'm hoping that you're gonna love this weekly dose of all things books. So without any further ado, let's get on with the show.
Welcome to the All Things Books show, hosted by award-winning best-selling mystery author Dawn Brooks. Publishing has changed beyond recognition in recent years. Join Dawn as she interviews authors, narrators, and many more from across the creative community. This inspiring and informative show is for readers and writers.
Hello and welcome to the All Things Book show. And today I've got Alex Lee, who's my audiobook narrator. Well, not mine alone, sadly. She also narrates for other people. But it's an absolute pleasure to have her along today. Hello, Alex.
Hello, Dawn, and thank you very much for inviting me.
It's my pleasure. So I'm just going to give a brief introduction about you, Alex, before we get into the interview. That will help you take some deep breaths. So Alex works as a voice narrator. She narrates and produces audiobooks, and it ticks every creative box for her. Being given the opportunity to add another dimension to an author's words and plot, giving their cast of characters a range of voices and accents, as she does plenty in mine, personalities and emotions, is a huge privilege and something she loves to do. So she says. We'll find out later. She's been lucky to have narrated titles across many different genres, including cozy mysteries. She's currently working on 3 series of those: historical fiction, psychological thrillers, romance, literary classics, children's literature, biographies, adventure, comedy, science fiction, and poetry. There is no end to her narrating talents. Her husband, Mark, is the person who produces the final product, in that he edits, proofs, and masters the files once Alex has narrated them, and we'll come on to that later. So Alex mainly works from home, but also works in an external studio occasionally. So let's get into the interview, Alex. And as I said, great to have you here and meet you face to face at last, although not properly physically.
And it's lovely to be here. And it has been a joy narrating the Rachel Prince series. I can't tell you, they feel like old friends to me now. And I've loved every minute of it.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because you've got 1,700 subscribers to this channel who listen to your audiobooks, and that's the only reason they're here, really. And now they're going to put up with this show. So tell us a bit about your background, Alex, and how you got into narrating audiobooks.
I think from a very, very young age, I absolutely loved performing. As a toddler, I wanted to dance. I was in shows all through my childhood and was desperate to be a ballet dancer. In fact, really, I wanted to be a Liza Minnelli. Singing, acting, dancing would have been absolutely my choice. I got into the Royal Ballet School and went for an audition at White Lodge. And they got the tape measure out and they said, "You're a lovely dancer, but," and the big but was, "you're never going to get the right length arms and legs, etc., etc." So from a very early age, that is all I wanted to do, was to be a dancer, a musical comedy star, really. So having been turned down, I thought, I'll see if I can get into drama school. So I got accepted into Lambda, which is in Hyde Park in London, and was all set to begin a course when, very sadly for my father, a business that was going to fund my my work, my study there, failed, and I had to pull out at the last minute. And my career after that was a series of, shall I try this? Maybe I'll do that. Because I wasn't doing the one thing that I really loved. I trained it as, I did 2 years of an SRN at the Middlesex Hospital in London. I was in public relations in London for about 5 years. I spent 11 very happy years in the record industry, working for a singer, songwriter and record producer. That got me involved in some voiceover work, and I was continuing to work, but very much I wasn't a professional. So I was an amateur actress.
Right.
I loved doing plays. I loved any opportunity to get up and perform. I had my voice trained by a lovely lady in London, and I was rather lucky in that the person who was having the lesson before me was Judi Dench. So as she came out of the classroom and got on her bike and cycled away in Fulham, I was going in. So I met her a few times.
Wow. That's amazing. I love Dame Judi Dench.
So do I.
All-time favorite actress. So what about the narrating? How did that come about?
The narrating started, was quite interesting, actually. I was on holiday with my husband in France, sitting with a glass of wine overlooking the Pyrenees, and my friend Susie, as you do, yeah, and she said, so what now? What are you going to do next? Because I had a craft business, we'd moved house, and I had wound that up. And I said, do you know, I've always wanted to narrate an audiobook. So she said, well, what's stopping you? I said, what do you mean, what's stopping me? I mean, I have no idea how to go about it. Maybe you need an agent, or so she said, look, I've got a friend in LA. I'm going to email him. I'll find out what he thinks and how he got involved, which she did. And he said, it's all done. He told me about ACX. And
ACX is the audiobook exchange, which is owned by Amazon, for those who don't know.
Yeah. And so he told her to pass on and say, look, tell Alex to email me and I'll explain the whole thing. But basically you can do it on the computer. So you can find out which authors are looking to have audiobooks made, submit an audition. And I did just that on my return. And I was hugely lucky to get the first book I auditioned for in July of 2017.
Which was?
It was called Where Lemons Bloom by a lady called Blair McDowell.
Right.
It didn't sell many copies. It had 17 Italian voices to try and find, which was difficult.
That prepared you for Rachel Prince, then?
It did, yes. Yeah. And I haven't looked back.
Excellent. So did you need any formal or informal training? How did you go about the voice bit, the voice acting bit?
I was very lucky when I was at school. I had the most brilliant drama coach. And I went to elocution and intensive drama work, which I carried on. And the actual, I've been to acting workshops over the years, continued in doing productions myself, you know, taking part in them. and keeping my acting skills going. I've also had some voice lessons with a brilliant voiceover artist called Tanya Rich. So in terms of preparation, knowing where your breathing is coming from, you need to be able to have and use intercostal diaphragmatic breathing. Otherwise you run out of steam.
Yes.
And of course the acting side, which I have kept up over the years and attended workshops. When I have the opportunity, I go to attend acting workshops.
And are you still part of an amateur dramatic society or anything, or don't you have time?
I haven't got the time.
Haven't got the time. No,
not
something we all
sadly.
want to do, but none of us have got
Sadly.
the time to do.
Exactly.
So you say this chap said to you that it was quite easy to get set up from home with your computer. I'm sure there's a little bit more to it than that. So how difficult or easy is it to set up a home workshop?
Do you know, it's interesting, Dawn, because I've met people at conferences who, when they're abroad, they still keep working by recording into a wardrobe surrounded by their clothes.
Yeah.
And take their microphone with them.
Yeah.
So to say that but I mean, I'm talking to you now. I don't know if you can see these thick acoustic tiles.
Yeah.
Then this studio isn't soundproofed, but it's actually, it absorbs sound and it absorbs all of the echo.
Yeah.
I've got a decent microphone. I'm using a Rode NT2 microphone with a pop shield. I use a punch and roll system to record. So I've got my laptop, and I use a combination of acoustic blankets. There's one here behind me, but also, and then acoustic tiles in front of me. And it evolved really. When I first did that first book, I was using a much less expensive microphone, but I think you need you do need a good mic. You need a good set of headphones, an audio interface, which sort of transfers the audio from what's going on in the microphone actually onto the computer using a DAW. I use a punch and roll method, which is where you stop and start. I can see the sound wave as I'm recording, and so I can stop and start myself, go back, and basically it's probably most narrators now use a punch and roll system to record, unless I did a book recently where I went to a studio in Oxford, and I had an editor sitting the other side of a glass panel, and he was doing all of that for me. So I just spoke into the microphone. But in my home studio, I'm doing that myself.
And which is the easier?
Myself.
Really?
Yeah. It's the only thing is you're your own worst critic, because when I listen back, I think to myself, oh no, I could have done that better. So yeah.
Well, welcome to authordom, because every time you write a book, you go, people, I heard someone say recently, you must write what you like, because you're going to have to read it about 600 times.
Exactly.
I don't quite go to that extent, but I do have to read it more times than I would like to, although it's a pleasure really, because I love the writing. So okay, so we've learned a little bit about the home studio. So is that an expensive setup for somebody who, say, was interested in getting started in audiobook narration?
If you wanted to start to see, I would have thought, I mean, microphones range from anything from sort of £80 or £90 to
Yeah.
£1,500 for a Neumann.
Yeah.
I think to start with, you could use a fairly inexpensive microphone. You do need an audio interface, which is what I was badly describing just then, and
Is
something
that
to
like a little?
deaden the sound.
Is the audio interface, is that something like Audacity, or is that sort of a bit more complicated than that?
I'm using Pro Tools, which you pay for each year.
Yeah.
It's used a lot by musicians, but of course we don't need all those features when you're actually doing audio.
Right.
But a good microphone, mic stand. If you're going to be using your iPad, which is for you to put your manuscript on, you need a good iPad stand and a light so that you can see by, and just enough material to be able to deaden the sounds so that you get the best possible quality sound when you're recording.
And that's the most important, isn't it? That deadening that sound.
Yes.
I've had a little go at even just for I did consider narrating audiobooks, but actually once I haven't got the voice for it, and once I tried one accent, I thought, forget it, Dawn. You just it's just not you. Keep writing.
But
pay the narrator.
Which you do wonderfully well. I love your writing. I love it.
Yeah, let's all stick to what we're good at, eh?
Yeah.
But if somebody was thinking of setting out, that gives them an idea. So, ballpark figure, cheapest setup?
Cheapest setup, I would have said $300 to $400.
Dollars or pounds?
Pounds.
Pounds. So about $400 or $500.
If you go much cheaper than that, the post-production work to get your audio files sounding anything like is more extensive.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah.
And mid-range setup?
I mean, my microphone, I think, was 280, about just under £300. Pro Tools costs $300 a year. Let me think.
So we're talking
medium setup really is going to be
$1,000 to $1,500.
Yes, I would say you could do it reasonably well for $1,000, particularly if you're getting reconditioned equipment as well, which is available.
Yeah.
I would have thought $1,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And obviously now you make a living from narrating audiobooks now. It started off obviously as a project, something you wanted to do, a bit like my writing really, and then it progressed into a full-time living, part-time living.
Yes, I mean I tend to record in the afternoon, so I would sort of get up and do my dog walking and get that done and have something to eat. Hope my tummy's not going to be making too many rumbles.
Of course, yeah. Another important thing.
And then I probably record for about 4 to 5 hours, and I would take a tea break in that time a day. Yeah,
because you have to stay well hydrated, don't you? For narration, you can't
much so.
You can't just launch yourself in front of a computer,
and you need to have a jolly good vocal warm up too.
Yeah,
all of the stretching and
really,
the tongue twisters and
that's so exciting. So we've talked a bit about how you got started, a bit about the setup. So what is it you need from an author or a publisher before you start working on an audiobook, assuming that you've passed your audition? Or nowadays I would think people approach you rather than you having to audition, do they?
I've been lucky enough, thank goodness, to work. Yours was the first series I worked on. So the first time that I didn't have to audition for each subsequent book.
Yeah.
Which was wonderful. And it gave me a nice sort of warm feeling that I thought, oh, Dawn's writing, she's writing another book. But
yeah,
I still audition.
yeah.
And I think what was the last part of the question you just asked me, Dawn? Sorry.
What do you need from the author and
Yes.
the publisher?
Most importantly,
other than the manuscript.
Yes. A final manuscript. It's amazing how many manuscripts I've seen where you think there are so many typos. But yes, a good...
Not mine, people,
finished.
not mine.
No, yours are brilliant. And the character notes, Dawn, your character notes, the preparation that you do before I start narrating is far and away above anybody else's that I've ever narrated for. And I bless you for that, because it's so essential and so helpful. Understanding, when I get your notes, I know how old that person is. I know what accent they speak with. I know what they look like. And so it's really, really helpful. I wish more authors did that. Sadly, they don't. You are on your own there, but it allows you to inhabit that character so much better when you have those notes.
I know. I think I'm doing far too much work, actually. Pearl Hewitt, another narrator who's narrating the Lady Marjorie series, she said she emailed me the other day and said, I don't get this from publishers, this is really good.
It makes all the difference. Because a lot of the preparation for narrating an audiobook happens before you actually speak the role. You're reading the book. When I first started, there's a very nifty little bit of app called I Annotate. Do you use it, Dawn? No. And it allows you to mark up a script in different colors, to underline things. So, for example, if you were looking at Lady Marjorie says a line and then she whispered, or she gasped. What you don't want to do is to start reading that and you haven't done a gasp, or you haven't done the line in a whisper. So everything needs to be read, thought about, prepared beforehand, and notified, so that you're coming to a yawn, or you're coming to something that you would need to alter your voice for. But I think the most important thing for any narrator is understanding those characters, and not only what you feel when you've read the book, but what the author is actually saying. And the more information, the more contact you have at the beginning with that, it makes for a good audiobook, in my experience.
Going back to when Alex auditioned for me, when I put the very first book, it was A Cruise to Murder, up for audition on ACX, I had around 50 auditions.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, and myself and a friend, Sue Dundon, who now listens to the files before the final files, because I no longer have the time to spend in detail. And Sue is wonderful for doing that for me. And also, I'm sick to death of the book by the time. So she does me a huge favor. But myself and her actually listened, and we got it down to 10. And then eventually we got it down to 5. And then I think it was Sue actually who said, quite rightly, that one's the best, and that was you, Alex Lee. So,
well, I'm very grateful for. Well, thank you, Sue and Dawn.
Yeah, and obviously I agreed. Otherwise, but yeah, and we were. So I've been thrilled to work with Alex, and we did that first book, and she's now done 10 in the series, and Alex will continue narrating Rachel Prince for as long as she wants to, and as long as I keep writing them. So that's great. So you've said a little bit about the audiobook narration process, but tell us a little bit more. So you've done all the preparation, then what?
Yeah. Preparing when you actually start recording. I'm lucky because I haven't got the pressure of recording in a studio with a director, where there is definitely a time pressure. So I can give myself time because I'm doing the first pass and edit myself. So when I start to record, I keep from about 9 o'clock in the morning, I'm drinking a lot, keeping my voice as hydrated as possible.
Not whiskey, folks, not whiskey.
And yeah, tea and coffee is not great either. You really need to drink lots of water.
Water, yeah. I'm a huge water drinker.
Yeah. So I start and I listen back. So my first, once I've recorded, I will listen back to each chapter, think, yeah, perhaps I might just change that. So I'm recording and thinking, yes, I could have done that better, or no, I like that. So I get to the end of the day's recording, I will have listened to each chapter. Then that is it. As far as the narration for that day, as I say, I probably wouldn't narrate for more than 4 or 5 hours maximum, because it's a bit too taxing on the voice.
So how long does it take to narrate the first pass narration? Are we talking? I mean, I know the final product can be anything from 4 hours for a shorter book to 10. I've even listened to audiobooks 14 hours long. So and it must take an awful lot longer.
Yes,
to narrate. And
to some extent it depends on the text. My worst, I think I can say this, my worst nightmare was a biography of Tolstoy, which was full of Russian names. It was that was really, really difficult. I think if you're recording for 4 or 5 hours a day, in that time, I would hope to have achieved 1.5 to 2 hours of finished audio in terms of what I'm happy with.
So double the time.
Yeah. That's because I'm actually probably being I'm going back and having a listen and altering things as I go along.
Yeah. But I have heard it takes 3 to 4 hours per finished hour, and then obviously
definitely
it then has to go through the editing process, doesn't it?
It does.
So yeah, walk us through that final production I know you can't tell us in great detail because your husband Mark is the producer, but what happens? You've produced your narration, then what happens? What does he have to do?
So the first thing I do, actually, which I'm sure other narrators don't do this because they haven't got the time, but my husband says it's worth doing. So I go through each chapter and I take out the breaths in between words.
Yeah.
And there is a gate, there is a way of doing that, but it's called a plug-in, but it tends to knock off the ends of words, D's and T's and P's and things, and you suddenly find the end of words missing. So I manually do that, and it takes me about an average chapter of yours would take me about 25 to 30 minutes to de-breath one chapter, to go through and actually highlight the breath, and remove it and replace it with room noise, which you record before you start.
Yeah.
So that's the first thing that happens post-production. Debreath it. There's a big hoo-ha, or differences of opinion. In the States, they tend to leave breaths in, but we don't over here so much. I don't know why, but we don't. So we debreath. Then Mark,
I can understand that, actually, because if you listen to a singer, you don't want to hear them take that huge breath in before they go into a voice. They have to learn to control that breathing, and it must be the same. I mean, I don't think I'd like to listen to a book with lots of breaths in.
No. No,
Yes.
definitely not.
So Mark gets it next.
So he gets it next, and he uses probably about 4 or 5 what are called plugins, which will make sure that my voice is even, as rich sounding, and those are very, very personal to whoever is actually narrating the book.
Yeah.
And he listens again with the manuscript in front of him and highlights for me on the track where he thinks, it could be that my dog, bless him, he's sleeping at my feet now, Dawn, and occasionally we can hear him snoring. And I've missed it myself, but he can say, "Oh, I can hear Alfie." So that's a drop in, as we call it, which is a re-record.
Yeah.
And the mastering and equalization of the sound, if necessary, to even it up. Then I do the drop-ins, which so I will then try and smooth in as evenly as I possibly can, listening to the previous words, and then actually re-record so that it blends in together.
Sure.
And then it goes from there to be turned into an MP3. It's called bouncing out, and that can take a day for a book, at least a day to bounce out. And then it goes over to Sue for a listen.
Yes. Who's very thorough.
Yep.
Poor Alex. I bet I'm probably the most OCD of all the authors you narrate for. And I've taught Sue to be the same. So blame me. It all comes back on me, not her.
The other thing with your books, Dawn, that is so important is before you start, I should have said you need to research the accents and listen to as much YouTube clips and stuff that's on the internet and try and find examples of people speaking. I'm sure. I know one reviewer said that he'd enjoyed listening. I think it was an early book. Very much to the audiobook, and said some nice things about us both. And then he said, but Alex Lee's Filipino and Scottish accent hasn't improved. Oh, no.
The thing is, I give her such a difficult task. I hope you're going to be a bit more understanding, although your reviews on YouTube are marvelous. I mean, the majority of people absolutely love you, and we do get comments occasionally from Americans that why do all the accents sound Texas, and it's a bit like Americans trying to do an English accent. We have a variety. We have accents that range from Newcastle to Liverpool to Norfolk to London to BBC English, and it's the same for us trying to understand American accents. It's not easy.
No.
To switch between different states in America. So please forgive us for
we're doing our best.
Any faux pas. Alex is doing her absolute best to master them. I did have to on a cruise. I had to record a Norwegian waiter's voice with permission, of course, for Alex, so that she could research the Norwegian.
Yes.
For one of the books.
That was quite hard to find on the internet. Actually.
Not easy to find on YouTube. No. no. So
You're
yes,
going to Iceland next, I hear.
yes, I'll get some
Yes.
accents for you. I'll see what I can do, Alex. All research. I only ever cruise for research. You do understand that, don't you? Yeah. Now, me as an author, when I go on to a place like ACX or Findaway Voices is the other one, we must mention other platforms because it isn't all just Amazon. And my audiobooks are available worldwide through Chirp and other audiobook stores, Barnes and Noble, etc. But when you go to look for a narrator, there's a thing called royalty share and cost per production. Now, obviously, I understand that because I pay per production, but could you just explain to anybody, any authors out there or readers, listeners, how that process works?
Certainly. The other thing is Royalty Share Plus, which they introduced a couple of years ago, which I'll mention briefly. With Royalty Share, when a narrator first starts out, the chances of you getting paid for production straight away are fairly slim. So you tend to start with, and a royalty share book means that essentially you are going through all the stages of researching, preparing, recording, editing, mastering a book.
Yeah.
In the hope that whoever you're doing that work for is savvy enough and committed enough to promote the audiobook once it is published.
Yeah.
So you're working for nothing.
Yeah.
In the hope that it will sell copies. And currently, on ACX, which is the main platform that I've auditioned for and found most of my work, they take Amazon or Audible takes 60%, leaving the remaining 40% to be distributed between the author and the narrator or the audiobook producer.
Yeah.
That is royalty share. And a lot of new authors try and find narrators prepared to do that for royalty share.
Because they don't have the money to pay up front because they're quite poor. And also a lot of good narrators may not take a risk on, although actually you have to take a risk to do a royalty share from your side of the coin. But from an author's side of the coin, they would opt for a royalty share because they couldn't basically afford the upfront costs most of the time.
Yes. It's a good way for a new author, independent author, and a new narrator to meet. I've done quite a few royalty shares in the early part of my career that have hardly seen the light of day.
And lost a lot of money and time.
And then I was lucky enough, I've done a couple that have been very lucrative, and I'm getting a nice monthly payment in royalties from those royalty share books. And there's a lot of people who will keep up their royalty share work, even really seasoned narrators who've done a lot of work, because
to
it's
get the regular income.
Yes, and it's rather nice having a little money coming in monthly.
Yeah.
Because you get paid by Audible.
Yeah.
The Royalty Share Plus is an interesting one, and something that I think the author, makes a contribution towards the post-production, the actual cost that a narrator would actually pay out to a proofer, to an editor. Those are all costs that are made by the narrator, and in a Royalty Plus deal, you still narrate for royalty share, but the actual post-production costs are paid for by the author. So that's royalty share plus.
Right. Okay.
I mean, if you were charging, let's say your rate was in the ACX band, $200 to $400 per finished hour.
Yeah.
Then for royalty share plus, you would probably be looking at approximately half of that fee to go towards the actual cost of making the book.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So for instance, if you earn, say you were the lower end, brand new narrator down the 1 to 200, and you recorded a book for $100 for finished hour. Say that book was 6 hours, that's $600, which isn't very much for a narrator, I have to say, but obviously they're starting out. So half of that, you say, would be producing the book to a good standard?
If they have farmed out their post-production work to an editor,
which a lot do, don't they?
Yes, then that's, an editor's going to cost somewhere, I'm talking in dollars now, about $75, $50 to $75 per finished hour.
Yeah.
A proofer, a little bit less than that. But yes, I mean, these are all costs that have to be borne by the narrator.
Yeah.
Without any promise that the book is. So it's all down to what you do so magnificently, Dawn, which is promotion. And it's absolutely key to any audiobook success, as well as the printed version.
It is a tricky one, this, because I can see it obviously from the author's side as well. When an author's just starting out and they've not sold that many books, and it's a huge outlay to pay, say, $1,500, $2,000.
Yes.
Between $1,500 and $2,500 to produce an audiobook, which they might never get back, because if they're not great at marketing, as you say, and can't sell enough books, or they've chosen the wrong narrator, it can actually be a big risk on their side as well. I mean, I made the business decision to do pay per production and took the risk, and thankfully, with the relationship that Alex and I have, it's worked out really well, and we both get money from it.
Yes. No, and of course, the more successful the author, the more successful the books, then an author probably will not opt for royalty share.
No,
because that's
in the long run. Which is the position which I'm in now, but I wasn't in when I first commissioned A Cruise to Murder, because who knew where it was going to go. But so initially, I think my first book, it took, because of the marketing aspect, it took about a year to 18 months to recoup the costs. But now I can recoup those costs very, very quickly. So, and that's obviously because of the success of the series and the success of people listening. I mean, as authors, talk about read through, i.e. people buy book 1 and then they want to read book 2 and 3 and etc. And it's the same with listen through. If somebody's listened to the first book and enjoyed it, they'll listen to the second, the third, etc. And that's how it works.
Are you pleased with the how they've done the audiobooks on Rachel Prince series, Dawn?
Extremely pleased with how the Rachel Prince Mistress is. I mean, obviously, I've sold more and more as I've written more and more, which is the same in book form, on every format, so ebook, print, and audiobook. But and I must admit, since going wide and since BookBub's Chirp came online and started offering audiobooks at great deals, then I started to recoup them by having a featured deal with Chirp. And you're not guaranteed to get one. Not every author or audiobook will get one. But if you've got a series, you've got more chance of getting one than if you haven't. And
Right.
initially they offered that as free promotion, and they just took the affiliate earnings for whatever the audiobook sold for. But now they do charge a small fee as well, but it's still well worth it. In fact, I've got a chirp coming up for Captain's Dinner Cruise Murder next month in June, where it'll be on sale for $1.99. And what I do every time I have one of those deals is I discount all the other books in the series.
Yes.
Now, unfortunately, as an author, if I'm exclusive with Audible, which you have to be if you go for a royalty share, if you're exclusive with Audible, you have no control whatsoever over the prices. The prices are set by Audible. This is ACX Amazon, and the author has absolutely no control over them. So that's why they cost between $16 and $25 for an audiobook. It's not, the authors don't set those prices. But when you go wider, which means I take a less percentage, a lower percentage, 25% from Audible instead of the 40%. But for the cost of that 15%, I can discount my books. I can promote them through places like Chirp, Barnes and Noble now offer promotions. Apple offer promotions. So Audible isn't the only place on the high street. But if you are in royalty share, then you are absolutely. And actually, Audible have been great at helping authors. And of course, now I've done the crazy thing, which most of the listeners and subscribers to this YouTube channel will know, of putting some of the audiobooks up for free on YouTube so that people can listen for absolutely nothing. I do get some money now because I'm a YouTube partner, and so I get a little bit of money from advertising.
Good.
But really, it was for the people during the pandemic, and I just thought people have got no money, people in parts of the world where they can't afford extortionate prices. I thought, let them have it. And if I can get some advertising revenue from it, which I am now, it's been a struggle, I must admit, but I do get a bit of advertising revenue. So don't complain about the ads, people. That's why you're getting free books. Anyway, back to you, Alex. So how many audiobooks now have you narrated and produced to date? If you can remember.
I'm about to start my 54th.
54th. And run us through, you said you were right across all sorts of genres. You've got 3 cozy mystery series ongoing, just in case any of my listeners are interested in those other ones. But what are the other series?
The Tommy and Evelyn Christie, set in the 1920s series.
That's Catherine Cole's, isn't it? Yeah.
And Catherine's writing a new series of cozy murder mysteries set in Berkshire and in the 1940s, just post-war.
I used to live in Berkshire.
Did you? Yes, so I'm starting the first book for Martha Miller. I was having some work done at home. The builders were making an awful racket, so I couldn't make any do any recording. So I went to their studio in Oxford and recorded the first book there. And I'm about to start work on the second book, called Daggers at the Country Show.
And that's where she's gone with a publisher now, isn't she? She's gone with Boldwood.
Yes,
So is that the 3 cozy series, or is there another one?
No, so that's so there's yours and two
of Catherine's. Yeah. And historical fiction, you've done
I love it. Love it. There's
my favourite read, actually, historical fiction.
Me too. I just love it. I've been lucky enough to do some work with Judith Arnott, and Judith has written some wonderful, mainly Tudor period, but also she's done some medieval ones. And I've been lucky enough to record 3 of her books so far. Kiss of the Concubine, about Anne Boleyn and Henry VIII. The last one was a challenge called The Heretic Wind. But I love that genre.
I was going to ask you what's your favourite genre. I think you've said it now.
I love historical fiction. With cozy murder mystery, I enjoy myself.
Yeah.
When I recorded recently a psychological thriller, I am frightened myself trying to inhabit the mind of someone practicing coercive control and just a thoroughly evil person. And I had to voice that. And it actually, it sounds a bit dramatic. I found that quite upsetting.
You've had to go for counselling since.
I had to go to counselling. Yes, I had to have endless cups of tea and breaks and stroke the dog and think, oh, come on.
And a brandy before bed.
Yes. I love cozy mystery. And I seem to have carved a bit of a niche in that market, thanks largely to you, Dawn, and Catherine's series as well.
I think once you're known for, I mean, when I was looking for somebody to narrate the Carlos Jacobi series, I wanted somebody who'd recorded crime fiction. And I got a wonderful narrator called Tim Bruce, who's also an actor. But he'd narrated a few in the genre. I mean, obviously narrators narrate across the board, but it is good to have one that's at least had some success with the genre, because it makes me feel more confident that they can they can do what I'm asking them to do. So is there anything that you will not narrate?
Erotica.
Yeah. I was expecting that somehow.
Funnily enough, that one of the books that I got put forward for, when I received the manuscript, I thought, no, not for me. That's just not somewhere that I want to go or would feel comfortable narrating.
Yeah, and that's fine, isn't it? We've all got our comfort zones. I mean, it's harder, I think, for you as a narrator, because you do narrate across the genres. Mostly authors, I mean, I do write a bit across genres, but most authors stick to the same genre, and that's usually the one we're most comfortable with. And obviously I'm most comfortable with cozy or clean crime fiction or amateur sleuths. So that's what I like to write, and that's my choice. So you have a right to decide what you will and won't do.
Yes.
As long as the wolf's not knocking at the door for your latest electricity and gas bill. Okay. I could talk about this all day, but we're nearly at an end. So just before you go, Alex, where can listeners, including authors and publishers, find you?
I have a website, which is alexleeaudio.uk. They could email me on alexleeaudio@gmail.com.
Yeah.
And on my website is my mobile number as well.
So have I got it right there? alexleeaudio.co.uk.
alexleeaudio.uk.
No. Hang on, let me take this out. I've just made a boo-boo. Let's edit that then. .uk. Didn't know there was such a thing. And yet I've been on your website loads of times and never noticed that. Okay, so that's Alex then. alexleeaudio.uk.
Yeah.
It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you at last. And I really wanted you to be the first interviewee to kick off this new series, All Things Books. So I'll just take you off screen for a minute, Alex, and exit the show. So thanks very much, Alex.
Thank you, Dawn, very much. And thank you for finding me way back when with the first book, A Cruise to Murder. I have loved every book that I've done for you. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. Well, that was a great interview. I mean, I love Alex and I love her narration, and that's why we've worked together for 10 books now, and we'll continue working together. But I think we're just about at the end of the show. So please hit the like button if you've enjoyed this interview, and please subscribe to the channel so that you can get more like this every week. This was episode 1 of the All Things Book Show with me, your host, Dawn Brooks. I'll see you next week.